am Katie McCoach. I'm a developmental editor and owner of KM Editorial LLC. My focus as an editor is working with authors to create their best stories. So whether they've been writing for 10 years or they just started, I'm there to help authors of all levels and many genres. I've been running my business since 2012 and I love it. It is very rewarding being able to see writers grow. Although I focus on developmental and content work, I do have a vetted team of editors who perform copy editing, proofreading, and final checks. Since 2012, I've worked with an amazing group of authors, many who have self-published, quite a few of those who have gone on to win awards, which is really exciting, and several others are represented by literary agents. One of my favorite things being an editor is seeing my client bookshelf grow. I literally have a shelf that is dedicated to my clients. It's not that one, but it's right nearby. I just love holding on to the physical copies and seeing how far it's come from when I was just starting on early drafts to it being produced and in my hands as a physical book. It's just really exciting. I'm really excited for all the authors who are able to do that. And my social media links, you can find me on katiemccoach.com. I do have a newsletter. It goes out monthly, once a month, and so I try to keep up content on there, but I also have a blog. And then my Facebook is Katie McCoach Editorial. You can also probably search KM Editorial. And then on Twitter, I'm Katie McCoach. So basically, it's my name. So you can find me on different platforms. And I try to keep up with my newsletter, blog, and Twitter the most.
Hi, Stuart. Thank you so much for having us. I'm really excited to talk about all editing and everything. I started editing about 10 years ago. I was always that nosy friend that liked to help everybody and give everybody advice. And also my favorite thing was to read. So combining those two things seemed like the natural thing to do. After college, I ended up getting an internship with a literary agency in New York. And then soon after that, I began working at HarperCollins at Avon. And from there, I decided to go freelance. And I got to meet so many more authors and so many amazing people. And I also get to control my own business. So it was a lot of fun. And I just loved it. And I've gotten to work with new publishing houses that I never would have had the opportunity to work with before. So I've always just been so drawn to the world of books and editing and everything involved with that.
What does an editor do? Big question. I know Carly is going to discuss some of the ways that the overview of what an editor does. I really wanted to dive into developmental editing versus copy editing and proofreading because it's very hard to understand. I think especially when you're new and you're looking for an editor, it's hard to know what type of editor you need at what time. And so I focus on developmental editing, and that can take place before the manuscript's complete with coaching work, outlining help, brainstorming sessions, but it can also take place after the draft has gone through multiple revisions and your draft has gone in with critique partners, beta readers, and you've made tons of revisions on it. But you've taken it as far as you possibly can on your own. And now it's time for a developmental editor. This person is going to work with you closely, read the manuscript once, twice, 3 times, think about it day and night, constantly figure out how to help you tell the best story you can. So maybe if you have a plot point that isn't totally there, if you've gotten a lot of the same feedback from critique partners but on character, but you're not sure exactly what you need to do to get it where it needs to be, then this is where a developmental editor comes in. We also will work closely with the writing skill. So, we work with things like you need to show more, not tell here, deepening the POV, making sure there's no head hopping, and a lot of those other things that can just help you strengthen your voice and your story altogether. Copy editing is after that has taken place. So after you have made all your revisions, you've strengthened the writing and the story altogether, and now it's done. It's totally done. You don't have any plans to make any more changes. Now it goes to copy editing. And copy editor will, they check out the punctuation, grammar, they do a lot of consistency checks, make sure you didn't change character's name halfway through, spelling is all right for every character throughout, fact checking sometimes, and any of the actual just copy. So they're not really there to rewrite or help you write stronger lines, except sometimes in really heavy copy editing. They're there to clean up the page and make it ready for formatting and printing. And then, just in case, just to go over quickly, proofreading is after all of that. A lot of times it's on the already formatted manuscript, and proofreading is there to check for any remaining errors from copy editing, any errors from when the author has accepted changes from copy editing, and sometimes it doesn't flip over completely, and then also anything that might have come up when formatting happened. So proofreading kind of checks to make sure everything lines up, looks good. And then I also have, we offer final checks, which is just a cold read of the arc. And this helps, like usually it's the copy that would be in the ebook, and I have an editor who will read it off of their Kindle, and this helps to make sure everything looks right on the page, and of course any remaining errors. So they're all different, and it's important to know what you need when the time comes.
What does an editor do? So an editor is basically your book's best friend. They should help you refine your voice and grow and learn and make sure you're bringing your vision to the reader. A lot of times it's hard to tell what a reader is going to get from your book and if they're getting what you intend them to get. And it's easy to think that they will, and it's easy to get caught up in your own writing and assume it's all being portrayed correctly, but that's not always the case. And an editor will help you meet a reader's expectations, and they'll help you grow and learn and become the best writer you can be and reach your potential. They're really there to help you find your voice, find your vision, and make your way to being a great author.
So Carly and I spoke about this, and one of the things we both agree on as the best aspect of being an editor is the fact that we get to read a ton of different stories, and there are so many unique voices and different ideas that people come up with, and they're really fun to work on. We also both love giving advice. Obviously we wouldn't do this job if we didn't, so it's a lot of fun when we give advice that's specific to a story or voice, and we can see that writer grow. I love working on, say I worked on book 1, and we've worked together, we've come up with a lot of ways to grow this story, and then I get up to book 2, and then just the author has grown so much. I love seeing that. I love seeing the progression of their work and how far they've come, and it's very rewarding. I also personally think the best part of the job, the part that gives me tingles when it happens, is when I get work back from an author after we've gone through revisions, after they've made revisions based on the notes I've given them. And it's when they've, say I gave them an idea or a few ideas on where to take the story or something that would make it stronger, and when I get it back, they've made this change that's 10 times better than anything I could have come up with for them, and they just knew the right change for their story, but they didn't know it as well before because in working together we're able to, my goal is to help an author think outside of the box and to come up with these other ideas that are right for the story that they couldn't see before. And so I love it. It's so much fun when I get something back and I'm just like, oh, that was exactly what we needed. I wouldn't call anything we do the worst. I wouldn't say they're the worst aspects, but there are some harder aspects of being an editor. I would say mostly it comes down to running a business. Just the fact that we have to wear multiple hats and keep certain records. We have to constantly track our expenses, income, follow up on invoices, make sure we maintain proper records and notes on all of our clients, and constantly work for new leads, because this is project based, and so even if we're booked months out, it's nice to be working towards the next lead to make sure that we're able to keep our businesses running smoothly. And one of the other bigger things that a lot of editors face is when an author has to make adjustments to the timeline. Now, this can be really tough because, say you've booked developmental editing, copy editing, and proofreading, and then you need to, maybe last minute, maybe not, but you need to make a change to the timeline. Maybe you need to push it out 2 weeks. The problem is a lot of editors are booked back to back, and there is not a lot of wiggle room in schedules because we book months in advance and we have to keep up a certain number of projects. So if one piece it needs to be adjusted, it impacts all the other edits down the line. You have 3 editors that you have to fit in their schedules, and they all will have different schedules. And so that can really be difficult because maybe what you thought was going to be 1 week push is actually going to have to be 3 months, just to be able to get into the next slot in the schedule. And also, editors are doing this as a business, so we are counting on a certain amount of income every month. So if something changes last minute, that also is difficult to deal with too. But overall, being able to work one-on-one with authors and helping them grow their voice is such a pleasure that all of that stuff is just like, oh, it's fine, because we love what we do so much and it's all worth it.
The most important lesson I've learned in publishing is that publishing is hard. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment and a lot of magic. You need luck to get by in this business, and it's just the truth. It's so easy for your book to be wonderful but not find the right person at the exact right time, and you just really need to keep trying and be open to different aspects and different avenues of publishing. That can mean different types of publishing, like self-publishing or indie publishers. But it can also mean different books and different age groups and all those different types of things. If you love it and you develop a thick skin, you'll find a way to do it. You just have to keep plugging away. But it's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. And just hope that you can find some magic. I work with the community a lot. My biggest involvement is actually with Katie. We both work and are founding editors with RevPit. And RevPit has a big annual event every year, which is like very similar to a lot of other pitch contests, but we focus on the editing. But we also do mini events almost every month where we really try to work with the community and build it and interact with all of you guys. And it's just really amazing. I've met so many amazing authors and so many amazing editors, Katie included, and it's just been great. Other things I've done, I've donated services to different events like Write for Life that helped with Puerto Rico and things like that. I go to a lot of conferences. I've done a few panels at like BEA. I've gone to like BookCon, things like that. It's a great way to meet other writers and editors. I also love doing workshops. I've done different ones with local RWA chapters. I've done other community workshops with things like Learnapalooza in Chicago. A lot of different things. It's all about interacting with different authors because I find you guys so inspiring and energizing and motivating. It's just really invigorating to get to know you and your stories and feel your excitement and your passion. At Booklight Editorial, we offer almost every different type of service. Personally, I do manuscript assessments, developmental edits, substantive edits, and I'll do occasional phone consultations to help authors work through small, specific problems or to help them navigate publishing a bit. Meanwhile, on my team, I also have people that do copy editing and proofreading. Currently, I'm the only developmental editor at Booklight Editorial, but I've got two amazing copy editors, and their advice and their opinions have been incredibly useful to growing the company and really bringing us to the next level. They're just amazing, and between the three of us, we basically cover every type of service you're going to need to get your book ready for all the different types of publishing.
So my company, we offer comprehensive edits, meaning from developmental to copy editing, proofreading, and final checks. So we can do the full shebang. We also I offer coaching work. So I personally, anything that is developmental or content based, I'm the one who's going to work on it. So we'll work together coaching, which is, anywhere from trying to figure out where you want to go in your career, to outlining help. And sometimes I take on the role of cheerleader, and I'm there to bounce ideas on. Because I'm so closely involved in a client's work, I tend to be one of those people who, I tend to be one of the first people that a client wants to go to for advice, where to take the story, a path to take, to even talk to about some decisions they have to make, if they're choosing between self-publishing or going the traditional route, or things like that, and or if they're second guessing their work, if they're having doubts. That tends to come into coaching a lot of times, and I'm there for that. I'm really happy to be, because I love to see my authors succeed, and I want them to take the path that's right for them, and so I'm happy to do that. And then I also will give query letter critiques, synopsis help, back cover copy matter, things like that. So if there's something an author wants that I'm not the best person for, and it's not something under the copy editing, proofreading umbrella that my other editors can do, then I will recommend someone who is better suited for that. I work in a lot of different genres with a lot of different types of authors. So I'll work with authors who have been writing for 10 years, or ones who are just starting out and have never worked with an editor before. A lot of times people come and they haven't worked with critique partners or beta readers before, and so a lot of times I am there to begin setting them on that path. So I'll work on all kinds of books and all kinds of genres. For the most part, I do tend to specialize in romance for adult audiences. Almost anything in romance except for historical. I really love working on contemporary romance the most, and I do a lot of sci-fi and fantasy and women's fiction for adult audiences, and also memoirs. Quite a few memoir authors, and it's a lot of fun to work on memoirs because they're just such personal stories. And I love working on practically any genre for the young adult and new adult audiences. So those are my main things that I work on. And if there's something that I don't work on, or maybe I don't have as much experience with, then I will recommend someone else who I know is a better fit for the author, because I want them to have their story get the best treatment it can.
Oh gosh, Katie and I have pretty similar taste in books. We both really make our bread and butter with romance. I mean, I love romance novels, and they're like my comfort food, the kind of book that I almost always am up for editing no matter what. But I also love like fantasy and sci-fi and mystery and all of those things. I can get excited about almost all of them. I do most age categories, middle grade and YA and adult. But if you really want to get me excited, I love like deep platonic friendships that really show who these characters are outside of a romance. And any time that you successfully twist a trope or find a way to subvert my expectations or really just surprise me. Something new and different that I haven't seen before. I love diverse characters that are really well rounded and deep and dimensional. I get really frustrated with the same old character that is just one thing. No one's one thing. So, really deep characters get me very excited. Basically, if you have a real complicated character that's just gritty and different and makes mistakes, but also tries hard, but also sometimes doesn't try hard or has a mean streak, I'll get really, really excited. Oh gosh, there's a few things that I end up saying over and over, and I'm sure a lot of them are very similar to what Katie has to say. And it's kind of funny because they often come in waves. I find myself repeating myself a lot for a couple months, and then a couple months later, it'll be this other same piece of advice. And I don't know if it's just luck or if I tend to get stuck on something. I think it's just different stories tend to come in waves. But my biggest piece of advice is to make your main character active and not passive. And that doesn't mean that they need to kick ass and take names and manipulate people or do any of that. What it means is that they can't always be responding to everybody else. The story can't only act upon them, they need to act upon the story and the other characters. The decisions they make need to have consequences, and those decisions and consequences need to drive the story forward. They can be making mistakes, their decision could be to not do anything, even, but those decisions result in your plot, and they result in how people treat them and how people interact with them. And if they're just letting the story happen to them, you're not going to root for them and you're not going to care and you're not going to want to go with them on this journey because the story is actually about other people and not your main character. Other things I would often say would be make sure every scene is either driving the plot forward or deepening your understanding of the characters. That doesn't mean every sentence needs to. You can set a scene, you can give us dialogue, but each portion of that chapter needs to really be pushing you forward. If it's stagnant, it's gonna just need to be cut. Or if it barely does anything, you'll find that there's more creative and interesting ways to give us that backstory and give us that information that still drives the story. Your book is about your character and their journey. It's not about extraneous history or complicated settings. Really focus on who those people are and what you're getting from them.
One of the the piece of advice I say I would give most often, there's a lot, but my focus tends to be on developing the character's journey. I really think that's probably the most important part of a story. So even if a plot is super strong, it's not as compelling if the character isn't directly impacted by it or they aren't directly making it happen. And so a lot of times I work closely with authors to make sure that their character motivation and goals are in line, that their motivation is impacting the goal, that's the whole reason they have it, and that the conflicts in the way actually make sense with the goal, and as well as the character flaw or their fear, their thing they need to get over by the end that creates the journey, the arc in the first place. So that's one of the things I tend to give the most advice on, because I really do feel like when you have a plot hole, usually it's fixed because once you fix something earlier on with the character, it just makes everything stronger, and then you know exactly what plot point will actually work for this story, the story you're trying to tell, the overall theme. So, and sometimes it comes about naturally, because once you nail down some of those goals, motivations, then you know the direction better. And so being able to create that plot, that sometimes the characters just create it naturally once you nail it down a little better. Overall, some other things, obviously, show, don't tell, comes up a lot, because I think there are a lot of ways we trick ourselves into thinking we've shown, and then really we realize we're still telling, we're still saying, this character feels this way, instead of just showing or how they feel by expressions, by internal thought, by sensations in the body. And so sometimes we'll say they are smiling out of happiness, and it's like, well, yes, we know that. So it's hard to nail that down sometimes, and it's one of the best things you can do for your work, but that's fine, because we all struggle with it. I struggle with it in my own writing, and it's just something that we continue to grow upon. Besides that, there are a lot of other things that are pretty common, that you'll see in all blogs and stuff, but those are the few things that I probably give the most advice on. I think it's important just for authors to remember that why they're doing this, and to have fun. I know that writing is not always fun, but developing your work is really exciting, and I really work hard to make sure that authors feel encouraged, and ready to attack revisions even when they seem very daunting, because it's really rewarding when you've created this story that you're like, that was the story that I wanted to tell. That was what I was trying to do the whole time, and now I've gotten it there. And I think that's such a big part of the writing process. But the other things, I just read a lot, write a lot, and take advice from people you trust. And sometimes there are people who just aren't the right people to take advice from, and that's okay. You will find those people. Just continue to search for them, and once you do find the people that you trust, respect, who understand your story and your vision, and stick with them, and keep going as long as you can, and keep growing. It's more rewarding when your stories continue to grow.
The biggest bit of advice that I think is really important for authors to remember is that your editor really cares about you, and they care about your book, and that's really easy to forget. So many authors come at us very defensively, or scared that we're going to just rip them to shreds, or that we're not going to get their book, or that we're going to ruin their book, or any of that, and we're never ever doing that. We care a lot about how your book does. We will be so upset on your behalf if it's not picked up. We will be so saddened when we read a bad review. It's your baby, but we're kind of like a nanny. We care, and we really want to be part of that book's life, and we really, really want it to succeed. Any advice we give you is in the hopes that we will help your book to be better. We want to give you your best chance to succeed, and you should never be afraid of what we're going to say or how we're going to react. We're not there to break you down. We're there to build you up. I wanted to say thank you, Stuart, for having us. It was a lot of fun. I love your YouTube channel, and I love all the things you do for the community, so thank you.